Hello, and welcome back to another episode of 8-Bit Monsters Monster Deconstruction for D&D 5th Edition. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Spy. This is the second newest, most popular episode of my shorts videos on YouTube. And I wanted to get a closer look at what's causing this Spy to be such an interesting and useful monster to use in your games. The Spy. It comes from the Monster Manual, and you can find it on page 349. And it's supposed to be a CR1 monster worth 200 experience. As we'll see later on in the podcast, this isn't actually the case, and I'll have some recommendations on how to fix that. And if you've seen the shorts on the Spy already, then you'll know what I'm talking about. One of the things I like to look at is encounter building and how you could use this Spy in certain situations in your campaign. One of the first things you could do is actually use the Spy as an epic encounter. Let's say your first level players are running around and trying to figure out what's going on in the city or what have you, and maybe figuring out why some particular information has been released to the public or something. Maybe there's a dastardly spy running around. Well, if you have at least 4 players and you want to use this as an epic encounter for your first level players, you could do that. This is an excellent epic encounter for those first level players. Now after that, we can look at using this as a group encounter. And if you want to throw your players at this Spy as a larger group, you could do so with 5 players at first level, 3 players at second level, and 2 players at third level. And this is all against one Spy. Next we can look at when to use this for a solo encounter. When your players are so strong that they're able to encounter the Spy 1-to-1. And at this point, you would want to use this with your players at 4th or 5th level. At that point, your players should be strong enough to deal with all of the abilities and skills and traits from the Spy at this level. And then after 5th level, you can start using the Spy as a swarm encounter. And you can use 2 Spies or more at 6th level and above. What's really funny to consider is that at 14th level, you could use upwards of 10 Spies against 1 adventurer. And at this point, you may want to consider using the minion monster rules from 4E and only giving these Spies 1 hit point so that your players can knock them out in 1 hit. Or checking the DMG on how to use swarms of monsters and the suggested rules there. The next question is, why would you be using swarms of Spies? I mean, honestly, why would you have 10 Spies all working together and then facing off against one of your players? Seems a little odd to me. But anyways, who knows, it could happen. Next, we'll move into the skills and traits of our Spy. And the Spy has a load of skills. We're talking deception, insight, investigation, perception, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. This is 7 skills that the Spy can use to its benefit. Problem is, these don't add to the Spy's combat prowess and take no effect into the DCR or the OCR at all. So even though we're going to ignore it, this is really great to have if your campaign is more roleplay based or intrigue and you need some kind of a Spy to get around and go after vital information and sneak through maybe the players' stuff, or if the players hire the Spy, working with the players and using the skills to infiltrate and get sensitive information they need there. Now, let's take a look at the traits that the Spy has, since the Spy has no other skills to really worry about. The first skill is Cunning Action, and this is the most important one. Cunning Action allows the NPC to dash, disengage, and hide. If you've heard any of my other podcast episodes or seen my other shorts, Cunning Action is extremely similar to the Goblin's Nimble Escape. The only thing it's missing is the dash feature. Now, considering the similarities, Cunning Action is going to get the same +4 attack bonus and AC bonus as Nimble Escape, which is extremely important later on. The other trait that the Spy has is Sneak Attack, and this is allowed once per turn as per anyone that's played a rogue. We'll assume, for the purposes of calculating the FCR, that the Spy gets into a position that it can use its sneak attack every turn. So now that we have all of our skills and traits set up, Let's shift into the defensive challenge rating. Now its DCR is a 1/4, and that comes from Cunning Action, which is a +4 AC bonus, and that will shift its normal AC of 12, which comes from having no armor at all and just relying on its Dex bonus, to a 16, provided you're using Cunning Action every turn. Next is the effective hit points, because nothing else is affecting its hit points. This is the 27 based off of its hit dice. And looking at the chart from the DMG book and creating custom monsters, this will be a DCR of 1/8. Not great for its hit points and survivability, but hopefully you're using Cunning Action all the time. Now that we have the DCR set, we'll take a look at what the DCR is expecting, which is a 13. And the effective AC of our spy, which is a 16, is +3 over that 13 that's expected for a DCR of 1/8. And because it's in multiples of 2, this is a +1 shift of a DCR of 1/8 to 1/4. Alright? So this is where we get our DCR of 1/4 for the spy. With that set, let's take a look at the offensive challenge rating of 4. Once again, the Cunning Action will affect the OCR, and this will give a +4 attack bonus from +4 to +8. And the +4 is coming from its Dex bonus and its Proficiency bonuses because its CRs are so low. On top of that, the spy has a few things it can do during combat, which is use its short sword for +5.5 damage per round, DPR for short. Also, it could use the hand crossbow, another +5.5 DPR. And it can also add in the sneak attack, which is an additional +7 DPR. Now the spy has a multi-attack for the short sword, so more than likely, if the spy is in combat, it may want to use the short sword unless it's running around using the Cunning Action feature, popping out of the shadows, shooting with its hand crossbow, and ducking back into the shadows. So the multi-attack with the short swords will result in a +11 DPR, and the average DPR coming from the multi-attack and the sneak attack will result in a total of 18 damage per round, which results in an OCR of 2. So looking at the OCR of a 2, this is expected to have a +3 attack bonus. But because of Cunning Action and how high that is, the effective attack bonus is a +8. Now this is +5 over the expected, resulting in a +2 shift from an OCR of 2 to 4. Again, we're seeing the results of this Cunning Action being similar to Nimble Escape and really pushing the spy well above and beyond the ratings that it should have, or at least is expected to have. So now that we have our OCR and our DCR set, let's calculate the final challenge rating for our spy. And to do that, we take the DCR of 1/4, add it to the OCR of 4, which results in a 4.25. We average that out, and we get a 2.125. Again, we round up or down to the closest CR value, and in this case will be a CR2. Okay, our spy is a printed 1, and we found a CR of 2. This is technically underrated if you're using Cunning Action all the time. The quick fix to this, as I stated in the shorts, is don't use Cunning Action. If your combat encounter is based off of the CR1 like it's printed, do not use Cunning Action. This will help the spy stay in the range of 1 that it's intended. It's important especially for our lower level players because they have so few hit points and so few ways to mitigate this kind of damage that a CR2 is a huge step for our players to handle when they're expecting a CR1 monster. So understand that by using Cunning Action all the time, you're actually going to be getting a CR2 monster during combat. If you don't want to use Cunning Action, as I've suggested in this quick fix, then you'll be bringing the spy down into the range it needs to be at in order to have a CR1 encounter with it. Let's take a look at the next section of the battle tactics, or how I would use the monster, and see some of the changes you might get from the CR rating. For Type 1, the Shoot, Hide, and Move spy. This is the spy that's going to already be in the shadows, pop out, shoot a player with advantage, getting the sneak attack, hide, and then move again to try and stay alive as long as possible. Now, with this tactic, the DCR stays the same, and it's going to be the same for all of these types because we don't have anything affecting the DCR anymore except for the nimble escape. So for the shoot hide type of spy, the DCR is a 1/4, and our OCR becomes a 3. And that's because the average damage drops from 18 to 12 because our spy can only use the hand crossbow once per round of combat. Now, this becomes an OCR of 1/2, but because of the nimble escape / cunning action feature, this will still result in a +2 shift from 1/2 to 3. And when we find the FCR this way for move, shooting, and hiding, relying on ranged combat, this will be a DCR of 1/4 plus an OCR of 3, resulting in 3.25, and averaged out we'll get a 1.625. Again, we'll have to round up to the highest CR value, which will result in a CR2 again. Now, because it's technically a CR 1/2 or so, technically CR 1 2/3, we have to round up, so it's a CR2. Now, if we were to use this as a type 2 spy, which would be the engage, attack, and disengage type of spy, hopefully relying on other tanky types of allies that the spy has to stop the target from moving and chasing after the spy, this will result in the found CR2 from earlier. So I'm not going to bother talking about that. This is the CR2 rating if the spy is using its nimble escape to rely on other of its allies to stop the targets from chasing it. Next is types 3 and 4. Now these are going to be similar except there's no nimble escape. So if we're not using nimble escape anymore, let's take a look at the shoot and move version that the spy is staying in the background but still trying to get the sneak attack by having an ally next to its target. Now the DCR shifts from a 1/4 to a 1/8, and the OCR becomes a 1. The attack bonus stays at +4, and the expected is looking for a +3. Because there's not a multiple of 2 difference here, there's no shift to the OCR of 1, and now we check the results as a DCR of 1/8 plus an OCR of 1, we get a 1.125, averaged out we get a 0.5625, and we round that down to the CR 1/2. So if our spy is using its hand crossbow and not using nimble escape, then this is a CR 1/2 spy. Now the last type is again the just the full melee spy, but is using allies to help it get sneak attack damage, but will result in also getting damage to it as well. So if the spy isn't using nimble escape and working with other allies to gain sneak attack in melee only, the DCR shifts to the 1/8 like we said before, but the OCR becomes a 2 because of the attack bonus not having the ability to shift it. So that 18 average damage will result in the OCR of 2. Now, doing our math here, we get the DCR of 1/8 plus the OCR of 2, results in a 2.125, and averaged out, we get a 1.0625. Rounding down just a little bit, we have a CR1. This is how you get your CR1 quick fix spy. No nimble escape, going into melee combat, and eventually dying, or pleading for its life because it is a spy. It's going to try and take advantage of the situation, but shouldn't be using its cunning action. I keep saying nimble escape. So these are the different ways I would use the spy in battle if it came to battle. Shoot, hide, move, engage, attack, disengage, or not using nimble escape, and then looking for ways to get the sneak attack bonus, either through ranged combat or through melee. Melee preferred because that gives you the CR1 you built your encounters off of or are fighting the spy through if you're a player listening to this. Thank you for joining me this week as we deconstructed the spy from D&D 5th edition. Join us again next week as we deconstruct another monster from D&D 5th edition and break it down into its barest parts to see what is going on with these monsters.